Have you ever walked into a busy shopping mall, a packed concert, or even a crowded subway car and felt an immediate, overwhelming urge to turn around and run? For some, a crowd is a source of energy, a buzz that makes them feel alive. But for others, it feels like a physical assault on the senses. Their heart rate climbs, their skin feels tight, and a strange sense of irritation begins to boil under the surface. If you're the person who always looks for the exit or prefers a quiet night in over a packed festival, people might have called you antisocial or shy. But psychology tells a much deeper story. Hating crowded places isn't just a quirk. It is a complex intersection of evolutionary biology, sensory processing, and personality architecture. Today, we are going into the mind of the crowd-averse. We're going to explore why your brain might perceive a sea of faces as a sea of threats, and why your need for space is actually a sophisticated survival mechanism. To understand why some of us hate crowds, we have to look at the brain's security alarm, the amygdala. This tiny almond-shaped cluster is responsible for processing fear and social cues. Research has shown that there is a direct link between the amygdala and our sense of parapersonal space. This is the invisible bubble that surrounds your body. For the average person, this bubble is about arm's length. But for people who hate crowds, this bubble is often much larger. When someone enters that bubble without your permission, your amygdala fires off a warning shot. It triggers the sympathetic nervous system, preparing you for fight or flight. In a crowded room, your alarm is going off constantly. Your brain is essentially shouting, "Intruder! Intruder!" every time someone brushes past your shoulder. This is why you feel exhausted after just 20 minutes in a crowd. Your body has been in a state of high alert stress the entire time. Beyond the amygdala, there is the concept of sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. About 15 to 20% of the population are what psychologists call highly sensitive people, or HSPs. If you are an HSP, your brain is essentially wired to take in more information than the average person and to process it more deeply. In a quiet room, this is a gift. It allows for deep creativity and high empathy. But in a crowd, it's a nightmare. Imagine a normal brain as a computer with a standard internet connection. It downloads the data of the room, the voices, the smells, the movement, at a steady pace. Now imagine a highly sensitive brain as a computer trying to download 4K video over a fiber optic line while 50 tabs are open. In a crowded place, the HSP is processing the flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of 10 different perfumes, the hum of the air conditioner, and the micro-expressions of every stranger walking past. It is a state of sensory flooding. When the brain cannot filter out the noise to focus on the signal, it shuts down or triggers an intense desire to escape. You don't hate the people, you hate the overwhelming data they represent. We can't talk about crowds without talking about the most famous divide in psychology: introversion versus extroversion. Contrary to popular belief, introversion isn't about being bad with people, it's about energy. Extroverts are active seekers of stimulation. Their brains have a high threshold for dopamine, meaning they need a lot of outside input, like the noise and energy of a crowd, to feel normal or happy. Introverts, however, have a much lower threshold. They are more sensitive to dopamine, so they reach their peak stimulation much faster. In a crowd, an introvert's social battery doesn't just drain, it short circuits. Psychologist Hans Eysenck proposed that introverts have a higher level of cortical arousal even at rest. Because they are already mentally simmering at a higher temperature, the added heat of a crowded environment pushes them into overarousal. They aren't avoiding people, they are protecting their equilibrium. Let's step back in time. For most of human history, we lived in small, tight-knit groups of about 50 to 150 people. Everyone knew everyone. A large crowd of strangers is a very new invention in the timeline of human evolution. For our ancestors, a large group of strangers usually meant one of two things: a war party or a panicked flight from a predator. If you hate crowds, you might be carrying the watchman's gene. Evolutionarily, it was beneficial for a tribe to have some members who were hyper-aware of their surroundings and wary of large, unpredictable groups. You are the one who notices the exits. You are the one who senses the tension in the room. In the modern world, this makes you anxious at a mall. 10,000 years ago, it made you the person who saved the tribe from an ambush. It's important to distinguish between different types of crowd aversion. First, there is aclophobia, the specific fear of crowds. This is usually tied to the feeling of being crushed, the lack of control, or the unpredictability of the mass of people. Then there is agoraphobia. While often defined as a fear of open spaces, it is actually more about a fear of being in a situation where escape might be difficult or help might not be available. A crowded stadium is a classic trigger for agoraphobia because the exit strategy is blocked by a sea of bodies. And finally, there is social anxiety disorder. This isn't about the physical crowd itself, but about the fear of being judged or scrutinized by the people in the crowd. Understanding which one you feel can change how you manage it. Is it the noise, sensory? Is it the lack of exits, agoraphobia? Or is it the fear of being looked at, social anxiety? One of the most unsettling things about a crowd is the loss of individuality. In social psychology, this is known as de-individuation. When people become part of a large crowd, they sometimes lose their sense of self and their usual moral restraints. This is why mob mentality happens. For a person who values autonomy and control, this is terrifying. When you are in a dense crowd, you can no longer move where you want to move. Your pace is determined by the person in front of you. Your personal safety is in the hands of strangers. For those with a high need for cognitive control, this loss of agency triggers an intense psychological stress. The crowd feels like a single, giant, unpredictable organism that could crush you at any moment. Not out of malice, but out of sheer physics. Interestingly, our modern world is making us more crowd-averse. As we spend more time in curated, quiet, digital environments, our tolerance for physical chaos is dropping. We can now order groceries, work from home, and watch movies without ever bumping into a stranger. This comfort creep means that when we are forced into a crowd, the contrast is even more jarring. Our brains have become unaccustomed to the static of physical proximity. If you are a crowd hater, the world can feel like it's built against you. But there are ways to manage the psychological toll. Controlled exposure. Don't avoid crowds entirely, or your bubble will continue to shrink. Visit busy places during off-peak hours to build a sense of mastery over the environment. The power of sound. For sensory-sensitive people, noise-canceling headphones are a lifesaver. By removing the auditory chaos, you give your brain 50% less data to process, making the visual crowd much easier to handle. The anchor technique. If you feel panicked, find a physical anchor, a wall to lean against, or a stationary object to focus on. This helps your brain reestablish its sense of place amidst the movement. Acceptance. Stop telling yourself you're broken because you don't like parties. Your brain is simply a high-precision instrument that requires a different environment to function at its best. The next time you feel that urge to escape a crowded room, don't be ashamed. Remember that your brain is simply doing its job. It's protecting your personal space, processing information with incredible depth, and keeping a watchful eye on your surroundings. You aren't antisocial. You are a person who values depth over density and peace over pressure. In a world that is constantly shouting for your attention and pushing for more togetherness, there is a quiet power in knowing exactly how much space you need to breathe. Thanks for watching. If you found this dive into the psychology of space helpful, consider subscribing and let me know in the comments. What's the one place you'll always avoid no matter what? Until next time, take care of your space and your mind.